Wow. The strongest snitch ever.
Most people play games. I spent years breaking them. Let's look at why modern gaming has completely optimized the mystery out of the experience. This isn't because gaming is dead or because I think modern games suck. Some of my favorite games ever came out in the last decade. But unless I completely cut myself off from civilization, the mystery of a new game is basically dead on arrival. Seriously, the moment a game launches, my YouTube feed turns into a minefield of spoilers. Secret ending explained, best build, best weapon, every hidden boss, every Easter egg, and every story twist. Every thumbnail tries to scream the biggest spoiler possible before I've even installed the damn game. And the older I get, the worse this problem becomes. When I was younger, I could buy a game and disappear in it for an entire weekend. Now, I've got kids, a wife, and a job. I don't have the luxury of finishing a 60-hour game in 3 days anymore, which brings me to Red Dead Redemption 2. I bought that game on day one. Absolutely love it and still play it today. To this day, it's one of the best games I've ever played. But because life gets in the way, I was working through the story at my own pace. Then YouTube did what YouTube does. One thumbnail, one stupid thumbnail. Arthur fucking dies. By that point, I already knew he had TB. And I know enough history to know Arthur wasn't exactly heading toward a happy retirement. But that's not the point. The point is that I never got to discover that ending for myself. The internet got there first. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized this isn't really a spoiler problem, it's a discovery problem. Somewhere along the way, gaming stopped feeling like stepping into the unknown. And maybe that's what I miss. Not old graphics, not old consoles, and not even old games. I miss turning a game on, having absolutely no clue what I'm doing, and somehow figuring it out anyway. Maybe that's why spoilers bother me so much. It's not because I hate information or because I hate guides, but because I've spent my entire life learning games the same way, by figuring them out. When I install a new game, I don't play it the way most people do. I ignore the menu, test the controls, and intentionally kill myself. Yeah, seriously, I kill myself over and over. Partly because I want to normalize it and stop caring about dying, and partly because if the game has some cool death animations or systems tied to death, I want to see them all. Then I start walking the edges of the maps. I look for holes in the geometry and places I can get out of bounds. Most players see a wall and think, that's the edge of the map. I see a wall and think, is it though? That's probably the tester in me, or maybe it's just curiosity. One time, I was testing a new weapon in a game. I jumped, slid, wall kicked, fired the weapon, and everything looked awesome. Then the game crashed. What followed was an hour of trying to figure out what exactly happened. When I first became a tester, finding bugs was exciting. Now, understanding why they happen is the exciting part. That's the puzzle. That's what I'm chasing. Because finding an answer and understanding an answer aren't the same thing. And maybe that's why things like recommended builds, objective markers, and tutorials sometimes annoy me. It's not because they're always bad, because if somebody hands you the answer, you might have the answer, but you don't have the understanding. Maybe that's why some of my strongest gaming memories have nothing to do with graphics, achievements, or loot. They come from figuring things out. I remember playing Super Mario Bros. on the NES, dying over and over and over, starting again, learning patterns, making mistakes, and making the same mistakes repeatedly. Then one day, something changed. I realized I had made it further than I ever had before, and suddenly there was panic. Not because I was scared, but because now I had something to lose. I was somewhere I'd never been before, and nobody helped me get there. I earned it. Looking back, I wasn't discovering secrets. I was discovering understanding. Then there was The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. I got stuck on a puzzle. Honestly, I don't even remember the puzzle anymore. I just remember being stuck. So I called my buddy. Had to ask his dad if he was home first, the 90s. When I finally got him on the phone, I asked, hey, have you figured this part out? Nope, he wasn't even there yet. So now both of us were screwed. No walkthrough, no YouTube, no answer, just trial and error. Fail, repeat, fail, repeat. I stayed up all night, tried again, and eventually, I figured it out. The first thing I did was call my buddy and tell him. Years later though, I found out he was basically using me as a walkthrough, and somehow he still beat the game before I did, because I had to pause at Ganon. Dinner was ready. The funny thing is, I don't remember the puzzle, but I remember being stuck, finally figuring it out, and how good that felt. The frustration absolutely sucked, but the frustration wasn't the opposite of satisfaction. it was the price of admission. Discovery wasn't something we did alone either. One of my favorite gaming memories was playing Shining Force 2 with my neighbor. He was older than me, but we both loved the first game. When the second one came out, we basically played it through together. I had the game, he had the experience, and together we spent what felt like weeks figuring things out, finding secrets, solving puzzles, and learning the systems. We just sat there trying to understand the game one piece at a time. Honestly, I don't remember every secret we found. What I remember is the journey, and sharing that journey with somebody else. It was wicked awesome. What are some of your childhood gaming memories? The details don't really matter. What was the best feeling you can remember? Was it sitting with your buddies on the couch passing the controller? Or was it just getting lost in the game for hours? Let me know in the comments. I love reading those stories. And hey, if you're digging this conversation so far, consider hitting subscribe. It helps out a lot. Then there was San Francisco Rush on the N64. My friends and I found this hidden stunt track, and the way to get there was insane. We couldn't believe we found it. We thought we were the coolest kids in school. We told everybody, not because we wanted views or clicks, but because we had discovered something and we wanted to share it. The more I think about it, the more I realize that's what made Discovery special. It wasn't the secret, the puzzle, or even the answer. It was the process, getting stuck, failing, trying weird things, learning, and sharing those experiences with other people. And maybe that's why I remember these feelings decades later, even when I can't remember the actual solutions. The answer wasn't important. The journey to the answer was. The funny thing is, I don't think guides are the problem. I don't think streamers are the problem, and I don't think information is the problem either. Because even back then, we still wanted information. We just got it differently. I still remember getting Nintendo Power in the mail. One issue in particular stands out, the special Mega Man X edition with the gray cool cover. That thing was awesome, and I waited forever for it to show up. The crazy part, there wasn't even a guarantee I was going to get that version because it was random. When it finally arrived, it felt like Christmas morning. And yeah, it had tips, maps, guides, and information on so many games, but somehow it felt different. Maybe because I had already spent hours trying to figure things out before it arrived, maybe because the information moved slower, or maybe because discovery had time to happen before the answers showed up. Back then, information traveled slower than discovery. Today, information travels faster than discovery. A game launches, and before most players have even finished downloading it, the secrets are already out. The best builds are already posted, the strongest weapons are already ranked, and the optimal strategies are already figured out. And if they aren't, somebody's making that video right now. I see it all the time, not just online, but with friends too. I've lost count of how many times someone has told me, "You're playing that wrong, that's not how you're supposed to do that," or "Why are you using that build?" And I get it, people are trying to help, and most of the time, they're not being malicious, but somewhere along the way, it feels like gaming shifted. The goal used to be figuring things out, now it feels like the goal is figuring things out first or finding the person who already did. And once that happens, everybody starts following the same paths, using the same builds, running the same loadouts, watching the same videos, and repeating the same strategies. As a tester, that's always felt strange to me, because if somebody hands you a build, you might have that build, but you don't understand the build system. If somebody hands you the answer, you might have the answer, but you don't understand why it's the answer. And that's the difference. Back then, discovery was something we shared. Today, it often feels like information we consume, and I think that's why so many modern games feel different to me. It's not because they're worse or easier, but because the relationship between players and the information completely changed. We stopped exploring first and looking for answers second. Now it feels like we get the answers before we even know what questions to ask. The more I think about it, the more I realize this was never really about spoilers. Arthur dying in a thumbnail sucked, but that's not what bothered me the most. And it isn't really about YouTube either, or build guides, wikis, or even streamers. Those are all just symptoms. The real thing I'm talking about is what happens when you stop figuring things out for ourselves. When I look back at all those memories, they all have something in common. Mario, Zelda, Shining Force 2, San Francisco Rush, and even the way I approach testing games today. None of those experiences started with understanding. They started with confusion, failure, and not knowing what the hell I was doing. And that's exactly what made them memorable. I think at some point, being lost became a problem that needed to be solved instead of part of the adventure. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying every game should be cryptic, that we should get rid of guides, or that we should all throw our phones in the trash and pretend it's 1995. Information and guides are useful, I've used them too, but every time we skip the process, we lose something. Maybe it's patience, problem solving, curiosity, or confidence, because every time I figured something out on my own as a kid, I wasn't just beating a game. I was building skills, learning patterns, learning persistence, learning how to adapt, and learning how to fail without quitting. Those lessons followed me far beyond gaming. Hell, they even eventually helped me become a tester. Even today, my entire job revolves around figuring things out, finding the mistakes, investigating systems, and understanding why something works or why it doesn't. And maybe that's why this topic lives rent-free in my head. Because I don't think discovery was valuable because it hid information. I think it was valuable because it forced us to engage, to experiment, to learn, to understand, and to earn it. And maybe that's what I miss most. Not the old games, not the old hardware, or even the old internet. Nobody misses that. I miss turning on a game and having absolutely no clue what I'm doing, and somehow figuring it out anyway. I miss getting lost, failing, learning, overcoming something, and sharing those discoveries with other people. Because discovery wasn't valuable because it hid the answer. Discovery was valuable because it made us earn the answer. And maybe that's the thing modern gaming optimized away. Not the mystery, the journey. And for me, that journey was always the best part. And remember, I can't tell you where I've been, but I can tell you what I've learned. Have a good one, gamers, and I'll see you in the next one.